The diplomatic transport Peaceful Dawn drifted silently through the void between stars, its hull scarred by recent repairs. Captain Sarah Chen stared at the report on her screen, reading it for the 5th time. The words hadn't changed, but she kept hoping they would. Confirmed death of human minor, designation Emma Rodriguez, age 12 standard years. Cause ritualistic execution by plasma immersion as decreed by Galactic Council Resolution 47 Alpha. Sarah's hands trembled as she set down the data pad. Emma Rodriguez, a 12-year-old girl who had been visiting the neutral station Kepler 7 with her parents for a cultural exchange program. The first human child to ever set foot in Galactic Council space. The door to her quarters chimed. "Enter," she called, her voice barely steady. Commander Liu stepped in, his face grim. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from Earth Command. They're asking for confirmation." "It's confirmed," Sarah said, standing slowly. The Zilithian magistrate provided full documentation. They recorded everything. Liu's jaw tightened. Why? What could a child have possibly done? Sarah pulled up the holographic display, showing the official Galactic Council decree. The alien text floated in the air, translated into standard English below. According to their records, Emma Rodriguez violated Sacred Doctrine 15 by consuming forbidden flesh of a protected species during the welcome feast. What protected species? Liu demanded. Fish, Sarah said, her voice hollow. She ate fish. Apparently, the Aquatic Liberation Front convinced the Council that all aquatic lifeforms are sentient and consuming them is equivalent to murder. Liu stared at her in disbelief. They executed a human child because she ate fish at a dinner they hosted? Sarah nodded. The Council voted unanimously. 37 species agreed that the crime warranted immediate execution, as an example to other barbaric species who might join their alliance. The captain walked to her viewport, staring out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights was Earth, where Emma's parents were probably still waiting for news. They had no idea their daughter was dead. "There's more," Liu said quietly. "The Galactic Council has issued a formal statement. They're calling it a necessary correction of human behavioral patterns and demanding that Earth acknowledge their authority in all interstellar matters." Sarah turned back to him. "They want us to thank them for murdering a child." "In essence, yes. They've also banned all further human travel in Council space, unless we agree to their complete list of behavioral modifications. No eating meat, no competitive sports, no individual decision-making without group consensus, and mandatory genetic alterations to reduce what they call our aggressive tendencies." The captain felt a cold rage building in her chest. Humans had spent 3 centuries dreaming of joining a galactic community. They had imagined sharing knowledge, culture, and friendship with alien civilizations. Instead, they had found a collection of species so obsessed with their own moral superiority that they would burn a child alive for eating the wrong food. "Captain," Liu continued, "there's something else. The Council broadcast the execution live to every world in their space. They wanted everyone to see what happens when someone violates their laws." Sarah closed her eyes. Emma Rodriguez, excited about meeting aliens, probably scared and confused in her final moments, not understanding why these strange beings wanted to hurt her. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "Best possible speed. Already plotted, Captain. We'll be home in 18 days. As the Peaceful Dawn jumped to faster-than-light travel, Sarah began composing her report. She knew that every word would be read by the highest levels of Earth government. More importantly, it would be read by humanity's military commanders. Humans had always been good at war. It was something the Galactic Council apparently hadn't researched thoroughly enough. While other species had evolved past conflict through genetic modification or cultural suppression, humans had simply gotten better at it. Earth's military had been preparing for this possibility since first contact. Not because they wanted war, but because they understood that the universe might not be as friendly as they hoped. The Terran Defense Force maintained fleets that no alien species had ever seen, weapons that no Council member knew existed, and strategies developed over centuries of human conflict. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that could be controlled through fear and moral lecturing. They had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. As Sarah typed her report, she thought about Emma Rodriguez, a bright kid who loved space exploration and dreamed of becoming an ambassador to alien worlds. She would never get that chance now, but maybe her death would mean something. Maybe it would be the moment humanity stopped trying to join the galactic community and started taking it over. The Council wanted to see human aggression. They were about to get a lesson in what humans could do when they were truly angry. 18 days to Earth. 18 days for the Council to enjoy their moral victory. After that, they would learn why every predator species in Earth's history had gone extinct. It wasn't because humans were better adapted or more intelligent. It was because when humans decided something needed to die, they made it happen. Sarah finished her report with a simple recommendation. Request immediate activation of all Terran Defense Force assets. Recommend total war protocols. The Galactic Council has declared themselves an enemy of humanity. We should respond accordingly. She sent the message and settled in for the journey home. Behind her, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that everything was about to change. The galaxy had been peaceful for 10,000 years. That peace was about to end, because 37 alien species had decided that burning a human child alive was acceptable behavior. They were wrong. And humanity was going to show them exactly how wrong they were. The diplomatic transport Peaceful Dawn drifted silently through the void between stars, its hull scarred by recent repairs. Captain Sarah Chen stared at the report on her screen, reading it for the 5th time. The words hadn't changed, but she kept hoping they would. Confirmed death of human minor designation Emma Rodriguez, age 12 standard years. Cause ritualistic execution by plasma immersion as decreed by Galactic Council Resolution 47 Alpha. Sarah's hands trembled as she set down the data pad. Emma Rodriguez, a 12-year-old girl who had been visiting the neutral station Kepler-7 with her parents for a cultural exchange program. The first human child to ever set foot in Galactic Council space. The door to her quarters chimed. "Enter," she called, her voice barely steady. Commander Liu stepped in, his face grim. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from Earth Command. They're asking for confirmation." "It's confirmed," Sarah said, standing slowly. The Zilithian magistrate provided full documentation. They recorded everything. Liu's jaw tightened. Why? What could a child have possibly done? Sarah pulled up the holographic display, showing the official Galactic Council decree. The alien text floated in the air, translated into standard English below. According to their records, Emma Rodriguez violated Sacred Doctrine 15 by consuming forbidden flesh of a protected species during the welcome feast. What protected species? Liu demanded. Fish, Sarah said, her voice hollow. She ate fish. Apparently, the Aquatic Liberation Front convinced the Council that all aquatic life forms are sentient, and consuming them is equivalent to murder. Liu stared at her in disbelief. They executed a human child because she ate fish at a dinner they hosted? Sarah nodded. The Council voted unanimously. 37 species agreed that the crime warranted immediate execution as an example to other barbaric species who might join their alliance. The captain walked to her viewport, staring out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights was Earth, where Emma's parents were probably still waiting for news. They had no idea their daughter was dead. There's more, Liu said quietly. The Galactic Council has issued a formal statement. They're calling it a necessary correction of human behavioral patterns and demanding that Earth acknowledge their authority in all interstellar matters. Sarah turned back to him. They want us to thank them for murdering a child. In essence, yes. They've also banned all further human travel in Council space unless we agree to their complete list of behavioral modifications. No eating meat, no competitive sports, no individual decision-making without group consensus, and mandatory genetic alterations to reduce what they call our aggressive tendencies. The captain felt a cold rage building in her chest. Humans had spent 3 centuries dreaming of joining a galactic community. They had imagined sharing knowledge, culture, and friendship with alien civilizations. Instead, they had found a collection of species so obsessed with their own moral superiority that they would burn a child alive for eating the wrong food. Captain, Liu continued, there's something else. The Council broadcast the execution live to every world in their space. They wanted everyone to see what happens when someone violates their laws. Sarah closed her eyes. Emma Rodriguez, excited about meeting aliens, probably scared and confused in her final moments, not understanding why these strange beings wanted to hurt her. Set course for Earth, she ordered. Best possible speed. Already plotted, Captain. We'll be home in 18 days. As the peaceful dawn jumped to faster-than-light travel, Sarah began composing her report. She knew that every word would be read by the highest levels of Earth government. More importantly, it would be read by humanity's military commanders. Humans had always been good at war. It was something the Galactic Council apparently hadn't researched thoroughly enough. While other species had evolved past conflict through genetic modification or cultural suppression, humans had simply gotten better at it. Earth's military had been preparing for this possibility since first contact. Not because they wanted war, but because they understood that the universe might not be as friendly as they hoped. The Terran Defense Force maintained fleets that no alien species had ever seen, weapons that no council member knew existed, and strategies developed over centuries of human conflict. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that could be controlled through fear and moral lecturing. They had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. As Sarah typed her report, she thought about Emma Rodriguez, a bright kid who loved space exploration and dreamed of becoming an ambassador to alien worlds. She would never get that chance now. But maybe her death would mean something. Maybe it would be the moment humanity stopped trying to join the galactic community and started taking it over. The Council wanted to see human aggression. They were about to get a lesson in what humans could do when they were truly angry. 18 days to Earth. 18 days for the Council to enjoy their moral victory. After that, they would learn why every predator species in Earth's history had gone extinct. It wasn't because humans were better adapted or more intelligent. It was because when humans decided something needed to die, they made it happen. Sarah finished her report with a simple recommendation. Request immediate activation of all Terran Defense Force assets. Recommend total war protocols. The Galactic Council has declared themselves an enemy of humanity. We should respond accordingly. She sent the message and settled in for the journey home. Behind her, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that everything was about to change. The galaxy had been peaceful for 10,000 years. That peace was about to end, because 37 alien species had decided that burning a human child alive was acceptable behavior. They were wrong. And humanity was going to show them exactly how wrong they were. High Counselor Zephyrian of the Altarian Empire examined the intelligence report with mild amusement. The crystalline being's form shimmered, with colors that indicated contentment as he read about humanity's declaration of war against the Galactic Council. They actually believe they can threaten us, he said, to the assembled council representatives. His voice resonated through the chamber's translation systems, reaching the 37 species present. A single world species with primitive chemical rockets dares to challenge a coalition that spans half the galaxy. Counselor Vexhai, a six-legged insectoid from the hive worlds, clicked his mandibles in agreement. Our intelligence indicates they possess fewer than 50 spacecraft capable of interstellar travel. Their largest vessel masses barely 200,000 tons. Perhaps we should send a demonstration fleet, suggested Counselor Thornwick, her plant-like form swaying gently. A few hundred ships to their home system. Show them the futility of resistance. Zephyrian's colors shifted to a deeper blue, indicating deep thought. No, that would be wasteful. Instead, we'll broadcast a message to their leadership. Give them one final chance to submit to proper civilization before we sterilize their world. Meanwhile, in a hidden facility beneath the surface of Europa, Admiral Hayes watched as humanity's true military might came alive. The Ice Moon's caverns had been carved out over decades, creating shipyards that could build vessels the size of cities. Thousands of workers moved with practiced efficiency, activating systems that had been kept in standby mode for 50 years. Status report, Hayes called out as she walked through the command center. Colonel Martinez, her second in command, pulled up holographic displays showing the hidden fleets. All 27 secret bases are online. The shipyards at Titan, Ganymede, and Ceres are running at full capacity. We'll have the entire fleet operational within 48 hours. What about the new recruits? Volunteers are flooding in from every nation and colony. The footage from Emma Rodriguez's execution has been seen by over 8 billion people. Recruitment centers can barely handle the applications. Hayes nodded grimly. The council had made a strategic error by broadcasting the execution. They had intended to terrorize humanity into submission. Instead, they had created a unified enemy more determined than any force in human History, show me the fleet. Composition, she ordered. The display shifted to show hundreds of ships emerging from hidden asteroid bases and camouflaged stations throughout the solar system. Dreadnoughts the size of skyscrapers, carriers packed with advanced fighter craft, and destroyers built for speed and overwhelming firepower. The Council thinks we have 50 ships, Martinez said with a slight smile. They've detected our civilian fleet and a few of our older patrol vessels. They have no idea about the Shadow Fleet. The Shadow Fleet was humanity's secret weapon, built over 5 decades by a coalition of Earth's governments and corporations. While publicly promoting peace and exploration, humanity had quietly prepared for the possibility that the universe might be hostile. Every asteroid mining operation had hidden a few warships. Every deep space research station had concealed weapon platforms. Every seemingly peaceful colony ship had carried enough firepower to level a city. What's our tactical assessment of Council forces? Hayes asked. Commander Singh, the fleet's intelligence chief, stepped forward. They're technologically advanced but complacent. Their ships are designed for intimidation and occupation, not serious warfare. Most of their weapon systems haven't been updated in centuries. Weaknesses, several. Their command structure is based on consensus building between species. In battle, they'll spend precious time debating tactics instead of reacting. Their ships are large but slow, built for comfort rather than combat efficiency. Most importantly, they haven't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Hayes smiled coldly. And humans have been fighting wars for our entire existence. Across the solar system, similar preparations were taking place. On Mars, the orbital defense grid powered up weapon satellites that had been disguised as communications relays. In the outer system, massive railgun platforms emerged from what Council sensors had identified as mining equipment. Earth's moon revealed its own secrets as hidden launch bays opened, revealing fighter squadrons that had been training in secret for decades. Luna Base, supposedly a research facility, was actually the command center for humanity's most advanced military technologies. Dr. Sarah Chen, the former diplomat's daughter and now head of the Weapons Research Division, stood in her laboratory on Luna Base, watching as the final preparations were made to humanity's most closely guarded secret. The quantum disruptor array is ready for deployment, she reported to Admiral Hayes via secure communication. Once activated, it will interfere with the Council's faster-than-light communications across a radius of 50 light-years. Casualties? None to living beings. It only affects their quantum communication networks. They'll be forced to rely on slower-than-light signals, giving us a massive tactical advantage. Hayes nodded approvingly. Good, what about the other projects? The nanite swarms are ready for deployment against their shield systems. The gravity mines are positioned at key hyperspace jump points, and the AI tactical coordinators have run over 10 million battle simulations. While humanity prepared for war, the Galactic Council remained confident in their superiority. Their latest intelligence report, delivered by a probe that had briefly entered the solar system, confirmed their expectations. Humanity possessed a small number of primitive vessels and some basic orbital installations. The probe had not detected the massive fleets hiding in asteroid fields. The weapon platforms, disguised as industrial equipment, or the advanced technologies that had been developed in secret. The Council saw what humanity wanted them to see, a young, weak species ripe for conquest. High Counselor Zephyrian composed the final ultimatum personally. The message was transmitted across space on all frequencies, ensuring that every human settlement would receive it. To the primitive species known as humanity, you have declared war against the combined might of 37 civilized worlds. This is your final opportunity to surrender unconditionally, submit to our authority, accept the behavioral modifications we deem necessary, and your species will be permitted to exist under our guidance. Refuse, and we will demonstrate the price of defying galactic law. You have 72 hours to respond. Admiral Hayes read the message from her command center on Europa, surrounded by displays showing humanity's hidden might, thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, weapons that could shatter planets and technologies that the Council couldn't even imagine. Send our reply, she ordered. The message that went back to the Galactic Council was simple and direct. For Emma Rodriguez and every human child who should never have to fear alien justice. Come and take our world if you can. The Council received the message and began mobilizing their fleets, confident that the war would be over within days. They were about to discover that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to give up, no matter what the odds. The galaxy was about to witness something it hadn't seen in millennia, a species that had learned to make war into an art form, facing enemies who had forgotten what real conflict meant. Emma Rodriguez was dead, but her death had awakened something that would reshape the stars themselves. The Galactic Council's first response fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system with the confidence of conquerors. Admiral Kethvar of the Nexilian Empire commanded 300 warships, more firepower than most species had ever seen in one place. His flagship, Moral Supremacy, was 12 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to glass a continent. Sensors show minimal human activity, reported his tactical officer. A few dozen primitive vessels scattered throughout their system. This will be easier than anticipated. Kethavar's four eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The humans had ignored the Council's ultimatum, and now they would face the consequences. A quick demonstration of superior firepower would bring about their surrender, and the galaxy would see what happened to species that defied proper order. Begin with their outer installations, he ordered. Destroy their mining facilities and research stations. Leave their homeworld intact until they beg for mercy. The fleet moved inward, targeting the first human installation, a mining operation around the asteroid Ceres. The facility appeared defenseless, just a few cargo haulers and processing equipment. Perfect for a demonstration. Moral Supremacy powered up its main particle cannon, a weapon capable of vaporizing small moons. The beam lanced out across space, striking the human facility dead center, and bounced harmlessly off an invisible barrier. What? Kethvar demanded. Report. Unknown energy shield, Admiral. Our weapons had no effect. Before the alien commander could respond, Ceres itself began to change. The asteroid split open like a flower, revealing a massive space station bristling with weapon emplacements. Hundreds of human ships poured out of hidden bays, moving with impossible speed and coordination. Impossible, Kethavar snarled. Their technology is primitive. The lead human vessel, a sleek destroyer barely 200 meters long, opened fire. A beam of coherent energy struck Moral Supremacy's shields and punched straight through, carving a molten scar across the flagship's hull. Admiral Hayes watched the battle from her command center on Europa. Surrounded by holographic displays showing the engagement, the Council fleet was massive and impressive, but they moved like museum pieces compared to humanity's vessels. Target their command ships first, she ordered. Let's see how well they coordinate when their admirals are dead. The human fleet moved like a school of predatory fish, attacking from multiple angles while maintaining perfect formation. Their ships were smaller than the Council vessels, but they were faster, more maneuverable, and packed with weapons that no alien species had ever encountered. Captain Torres, commanding the destroyer Emma's Vengeance, led the attack on the alien flagship. His ship danced between enemy fire, its advanced AI calculating trajectories and threats in real time. Quantum torpedoes away, he reported as his weapons locked onto the massive alien vessel. The torpedoes didn't explode on impact. Instead, they phased through the enemy shields and detonated inside the ship's hull, tearing apart critical systems from within. Moral Supremacy shuddered as internal explosions cascaded through its superstructure. Admiral Kethvar felt his ship dying around him. All vessels concentrate fire on the human ships. Destroy them! But the Council fleet couldn't adapt to human tactics. Their weapons were designed for long-range bombardment of stationary targets, not for the high-speed engagement the humans had forced upon them. Human ships flickered in and out of sensor range, appearing long enough to deliver devastating attacks before vanishing again. They're using some kind of stealth technology, the tactical officer reported. Our targeting systems can't lock on. What the aliens didn't know was that human ships weren't just using stealth. They were using quantum phase shifting, a technology that allowed them to exist slightly out of phase with normal space. To alien sensors, they appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Commander Singh, aboard the carrier Humanity's Hope, launched his fighter squadrons. 200 small craft swarmed toward the enemy fleet, each one carrying enough firepower to cripple a Council cruiser. The aliens had never faced fighter craft like these. Council doctrine focused on large ships fighting other large ships. The idea of tiny vessels being threats to major warships was beyond their understanding. The fighters struck like angry hornets, targeting the Council ship's weapon systems and engines. Their pilots had trained for this moment their entire lives, and they flew with the precision of machines and the fury of humans who had seen their species insulted. Within an hour, the Council's first response fleet was in complete disarray. Half their ships had been destroyed or disabled, and the remainder were trying desperately to retreat. But human ships were faster, and they had positioned themselves to cut off every escape route. Admiral Kethvar, his flagship crippled and burning, opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "We surrender," he transmitted. "By galactic law, you must accept our surrender." The response came from Admiral Hayes herself, transmitted across all frequencies so every Council ship could hear. "There is no surrender from those who murder children. Your species made the rules when you killed Emma Rodriguez. Now you live by them." The Emma's vengeance fired a final volley, and the moral supremacy broke apart in a ball of superheated plasma. The surviving Council ships tried to escape to hyperspace, but found their faster-than-light drives disabled by humanity's quantum disruption field. They were trapped in the solar system, hunted by human vessels that seemed to appear and disappear at will. By the end of the day, the entire Council fleet had been destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost. The footage of the battle was transmitted across the galaxy by human deep space probes, ensuring every species in Council space could witness what had happened. The commentary was provided by Captain Sarah Chen, speaking from the bridge of the diplomatic vessel that had brought news of Emma's death. "The Galactic Council sent 300 warships to destroy humanity," she said calmly as images of burning alien vessels filled the transmission. "They believed we were primitive and helpless. They were wrong. For 50 years, humanity has prepared for this day. We built weapons they cannot imagine, ships they cannot catch, and strategies they cannot counter." The transmission showed human Marines boarding crippled Council vessels, taking prisoners who would be treated according to human standards of warfare, far more humanely than the Council had treated Emma Rodriguez. "The Council claims to represent civilization and moral order," Sarah continued. "They burned a human child alive and called it justice. Today, humanity showed them what real justice looks like. This is just the beginning." Across Council space, the alien leadership watched the destruction of their fleet with growing horror. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had demonstrated technological superiority that rendered the Council's entire military doctrine obsolete. High Counselor. Zephyrian's crystalline form flickered with colors indicating extreme distress. "How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated they were barely capable of interplanetary travel." "They deceived us," Counselor Vexhai responded, his insectoid form trembling. "Everything we thought we knew about them was wrong." Emergency sessions were called on every Council world. Military commanders who had been confident of easy victory now scrambled to understand how a single world species had destroyed their most powerful fleet without losses. But Admiral Hayes wasn't finished. The destruction of the first response fleet was just the opening move in a campaign she had planned for decades. While the Council debated and panicked, human fleets were already moving toward their targets. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity didn't just fight wars, they excelled at them. And when humans went to war, they didn't stop until their enemies no longer existed. Emma Rodriguez had been avenged, but the war was far from over. The Council had awakened something they couldn't control, and now they would face the full fury of a species that had turned warfare into the deadliest of arts. The Galactic Council's emergency war session had been in progress for 3 days. Representatives from 37 species argued, pleaded, and demanded answers while their fleets burned across a dozen systems. The humans hadn't just won the first battle. They were winning every engagement with tactics and technology that defied everything the Council thought they knew about warfare. High Counselor. Zephyrian's crystalline form had lost all color, turning a dull gray that indicated despair among his species. Before him, holographic displays showed the devastating losses the Council forces had suffered in just 1 week of fighting. The 3rd Defense Fleet, gone. The Nexilian Home Guard, destroyed. Even our fortress world at Kepler Prime has fallen, he announced to the assembled representatives. How can a single species defeat the combined might of 37 civilizations? The answer came from an unlikely source. Counselor Drakmore, a warrior species that had been among the most vocal supporters of Emma Rodriguez's execution. His reptilian features showed an emotion rarely seen in council chambers: fear. "I studied their tactics after the first defeat," he said, his voice heavy with respect he didn't want to feel. "The humans don't fight like us. We send massive fleets to demonstrate power and force surrender through intimidation. They send smaller forces designed to kill efficiently and move on to the next target." He activated a tactical display showing human fleet movements across the galaxy. Red arrows indicated human advances, while blue zones marked council territories. "Look at their strategy. They're not trying to conquer our worlds. They're systematically destroying our ability to make war. Every target has been military: shipyards, defense stations, weapon manufacturing facilities. They're dismantling our entire war machine while avoiding civilian casualties." Councillor Vexhigh's mandibles clicked nervously. "Our intelligence suggests they have fewer than 15,000 ships. We have over 40,000 still operational. Numbers don't matter when their ships are superior to ours in every way," Drakmor replied grimly. "Each human vessel can outfight 3 of ours. Their weapons penetrate our shields, their armor deflects our attacks, and their speed makes them nearly impossible to catch." Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of her flagship. Righteous fury, as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Altarian system, the Council's capital world lay before her, protected by the largest fleet ever assembled. Over 5,000 ships forming defensive formations around their homeworld. "Impressive," commented Colonel Martinez, studying the enemy positions. "They've learned from our previous engagements." Hayes smiled coldly. "They've learned some lessons, not all the important ones. Deploy the nanite swarms." Invisible to enemy sensors, millions of microscopic machines spread out from the human fleet. Each nanite was smaller than a virus, but carried enough programming to target specific technologies. Within hours, they had infiltrated every council ship in the system. The council fleet's admiral, a proud Altarian named Christek, watched the human ships with growing confidence. The aliens had positioned themselves between concentric defensive rings, exactly where his tactical computers predicted maximum casualties could be inflicted. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered. "Show these primitives the price of defying galactic law." 5,000 ships opened fire simultaneously, creating a barrage that should have vaporized any fleet in known space. The human ships simply disappeared. "Where did they go?" Christek demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human fleet reappeared inside the defensive perimeter, having phase-shifted through the council ship's own formations. But that wasn't the worst surprise waiting for the aliens. Throughout the council fleet, shield generators began shutting down as nanites completed their programmed tasks. Weapon systems went offline. Navigation computers failed. The magnificent fleet that had been the Council's last hope was rapidly becoming a collection of helpless targets. "All ships, switch to backup systems," Christek ordered, but the nanites had been thorough. Every technological system the Council relied on was compromised. Human ships moved through the disabled fleet like wolves among sheep. Their quantum torpedoes didn't just destroy ships, they completely disintegrated them, leaving no wreckage, no survivors. No evidence that the vessels had ever existed except for the rapidly expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Captain Chen, commanding the destroyer Emma's Justice, targeted the Council flagship personally. Her ship's AI had identified Christek as the admiral who had voted for Emma Rodriguez's execution. "This is for a little girl who wanted to be an ambassador," she said as her ship's main gun charged. The particle beam that followed turned the massive alien dreadnought into expanding gas and twisted metal. The battle lasted less than 2 hours. When it ended, the capital system of the Galactic Council was undefended, its entire fleet reduced to debris and energy signatures. The human fleet hung in space above the Council homeworld, close enough to destroy every city on the planet, but making no aggressive moves toward civilian targets. Admiral Hayes opened a communication channel to the planet below. "People of Altaria, your fleet is destroyed and your world is defenseless. However, humanity does not make war on civilians. We are broadcasting the complete records of Emma Rodriguez's trial and execution to your population. Let them judge for themselves whether their leader's actions were just." The transmission that followed showed everything. A 12-year-old girl being sentenced to death for eating fish, her terrified final moments as she was burned alive, and the Council representatives celebrating their enforcement of proper behavior on primitive species. The effect on Altarian society was immediate and devastating. Riots erupted in major cities as civilians learned the truth about why the war had started. The crystalline beings, despite their advanced civilization, could understand the horror of what their leaders had done to an innocent child. Similar scenes played out across Council space as human forces systematically destroyed military targets while broadcasting the truth about Emma Rodriguez. The alien populations, most of whom had never known the real reason for the war, were horrified to learn their governments had murdered a child and then started a conflict to cover their crime. On Earth, President Santos watched the tactical displays with mixed emotions. The war was going better than anyone had dared hope, but the cost in alien lives was staggering even if they were military casualties. "How many of their ships have we destroyed?" she asked Admiral Hayes during their daily briefing. "Over 20,000 confirmed kills. Their manufacturing capability is down by 70%. Most of their species are calling for surrender." "And our losses?" Hayes' expression darkened. 43 ships damaged, 12 destroyed, 837 casualties. The crew of the destroyer Determination died when they sacrificed themselves to protect a Council civilian transport that got caught in crossfire. Santos nodded grimly. Even in their righteous fury, humans maintained their ethical standards. They were fighting a war of annihilation against Council military forces while going to extraordinary lengths to protect civilian populations. The Council leadership is requesting negotiations, Hayes continued. They want to discuss surrender terms. After what they did to Emma? After they called us primitive and threatened to exterminate our species? They're desperate. Their own populations are demanding answers. Several member species have already withdrawn from the Council. The Hive worlds are in open rebellion against their government. Santos studied the galactic map showing human advances. In just 2 weeks, they had effectively ended the power of the oldest political entity in the galaxy. "Set up the meeting," she decided, "but make it clear that we're not negotiating surrender terms. We're dictating them." The message that went out to the surviving Council leadership was simple. You wanted to teach humanity about civilization and proper behavior. Now humanity will teach you. Report to Luna Base within 72 hours to discuss the new order of the galaxy. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had ruled through moral superiority and technological dominance. In 2 weeks, a single species had proven that neither quality mattered when facing an enemy that refused to be intimidated. Emma Rodriguez was still dead, but her death had toppled an empire and reshaped the balance of power among the stars. The galaxy would never be the same, and everyone in it now knew one thing for certain. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The Luna Base conference room had never hosted anything like this meeting. Representatives from 37 alien species sat around a table designed by humans on a moon orbiting the world they had tried to destroy. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. High Counselor Zephyrian, his crystalline form now completely transparent with defeat, struggled to maintain his composure as Admiral Hayes read the terms of surrender. Beside him sat the remnants of galactic leadership, species that had ruled star systems for millennia, now reduced to begging for mercy from the humans they had dismissed as primitives. "The Galactic Council is hereby dissolved," Hayes announced, her voice echoing in the chamber. "All member species will establish individual diplomatic relations with the Terran Federation. Military cooperation between former Council species is forbidden for a period of 50 Earth years." Counselor Vexhi's insectoid form trembled as he spoke. "Admiral, surely some consideration can be made for our existing governmental structures. Many of our species have been allied for thousands of years." President Santos, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. "Your existing governmental structures authorized the execution of a human child for eating fish. They declared war on our species and threatened our extinction. Why should we preserve institutions that proved themselves fundamentally hostile to peaceful coexistence?" The weight of Emma Rodriguez's death hung over the room like a physical presence. Every alien representative had been forced to watch the complete recording of the girl's execution, including the celebratory speeches that followed. Several species had requested separate meetings to personally apologize for their role in the atrocity. Counselor Drakmore, the reptilian warrior whose species had been among Emma's strongest supporters for execution, spoke with obvious difficulty. We did not understand what we were doing. In our culture, ritual execution is an honor. We thought we were showing respect for the child by allowing her to die with ceremony. You thought burning a terrified 12-year-old alive was showing respect? Colonel Martinez snapped, unable to contain his anger. She was crying for her parents when you lit the fires. The room fell silent. Several alien representatives made sounds that their translators interpreted as weeping. Admiral Hayes continued reading the terms. War reparations will be paid to the Rodriguez family and to the Terran Federation. The total amount will be calculated based on the full military expenditure of this conflict, plus compensation for emotional damages suffered by humanity. The numbers that followed made several aliens gasp. The cost of humanity's war machine, revealed for the first time, was staggering. 50 years of secret military development, thousands of advanced warships, weapons research that had cost trillions of credits, all of it would be paid for by the species that had forced the conflict. Additionally, Hayes continued, all former Council species will contribute to the Emma Rodriguez Memorial Foundation, which will promote peaceful interspecies contact and prevent future incidents of cultural misunderstanding. Zephyrian found his voice. Admiral, these terms will bankrupt most of our worlds. Our economies cannot sustain such payments. Santos smiled coldly. You should have considered that before you started a war with humanity. We're not interested in your economic difficulties. We're interested in ensuring this never happens again. The true scope of humanity's victory was becoming clear to the assembled aliens. This wasn't just military defeat, it was the complete restructuring of galactic civilization around human standards and human power. The new interspecies cooperation accords will be administered by the Terran Federation, Hayes announced. Any species wishing to engage in interstellar trade, diplomacy, or cultural exchange must abide by human standards for the protection of civilians, especially children. Behind the formal negotiations, the real transformation of the galaxy was already underway. Human fleets had not stopped with the destruction of Council military forces. They had moved on to what Admiral Hayes privately called cultural recalibration missions. Captain Torres, now commanding the heavy cruiser Emma's Legacy, led the task force assigned to the Zilithian Empire, the species whose magistrate had personally ordered Emma Rodriguez's execution. The Zilithians had surrendered immediately after their homeworld's defense fleet was vaporized, but humanity had special plans for them. Broadcasting now, reported Lieutenant Kim from the communication station. Across Zilithian space, every communication device simultaneously displayed the same message. Recordings of human children talking about their hopes and dreams, their excitement about meeting alien friends, their innocent questions about life among the stars. The message was simple, but devastating to a species that had convinced themselves they were saving the galaxy from human barbarism. The psychological impact on Zilithian society was profound. A species that prided itself on moral superiority was forced to confront the reality that they had murdered someone who could have been their own child. Zilithian parents watched their own children react with horror and grief to Emma's story, and many began to question everything their government had taught them about humans. Similar campaigns were conducted across former Council space. The Nexilian Empire, whose admiral had led the failed attack on Earth, found their military academies replaced with schools teaching human conflict resolution and child protection protocols. The hive worlds, whose collective consciousness had voted unanimously for Emma's execution, were forced to incorporate human individual rights concepts into their shared mental network. But the most significant change was happening on Earth itself. The war had united humanity in a way nothing in their history had achieved. The sight of their species standing up to galactic powers and winning had created a sense of collective pride and purpose that transcended old national and cultural boundaries. The Terran Federation, hastily formed at the war's beginning, was evolving into something unprecedented, a truly global government backed by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Earth's various nations, seeing the benefits of unity in an interstellar context, were voluntarily ceding sovereignty to the Federation. David and Carmen Rodriguez sat in their living room, watching the news coverage of the Luna base negotiations. The weight of their daughter's impact on galactic history was still difficult to comprehend. She would have wanted peace, Carmen said quietly. Emma always believed in making friends with everyone. David nodded, his eyes fixed on the images of alien representatives signing documents that would reshape civilization. She's getting her wish. just not the way she would have imagined. The Rodriguez family had become symbols of human resilience and moral authority. Their daughter's death had triggered the most successful military campaign in human history, but they took no satisfaction in the violence. Instead, they focused on the Emma Rodriguez Memorial Foundation, which was already receiving applications from alien species wanting to participate in cultural exchange programs. As the negotiations on Luna Base continued, Admiral Hayes received regular reports from human fleets across the galaxy. The strategic situation was unprecedented in galactic history. A single species had achieved complete military dominance over 37 civilizations in less than a month. Status of the former Council territories? She asked her staff during a break in the negotiations. Full compliance across all sectors, reported Colonel Martinez. Several species are requesting immediate establishment of diplomatic relations with the Federation. The Aquatic Liberation Front, the group that convinced the Council to classify fish as sentient, has disbanded and issued a formal apology. Resistance movements? None of any significance. The Thoraxian Confederacy tried to organize a rebellion, but their own population turned them over to our forces. Apparently, the complete tactical recordings of our battles have convinced most aliens that resistance is futile. Hayes nodded. The decision to broadcast every engagement had been psychologically devastating to alien morale. Watching human forces systematically dismantle fleets that had been considered invincible for centuries had broken the spirit of potential resistors. The final terms of surrender were signed as Earth's sun set over Luna Base. The Galactic Council, which had ruled for 10,000 years, officially ceased to exist. In its place, a new order emerged with humanity at its center, not as conquerors, but as the guardians of a galaxy where no child would ever again be murdered for the crime of being different. Emma Rodriguez had wanted to be an ambassador to alien worlds. In death, she had become something greater, the catalyst for a new age of interstellar civilization built on human principles of individual rights and the protection of the innocent. 5 years after the war's end, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before Emma Rodriguez's death. The former Galactic Council territories had been transformed into something unprecedented, a truly peaceful interstellar civilization, built around the protection of individual rights and the celebration of diversity rather than its suppression. President Maria Santos stood in the observation deck of Harmony Station, the massive space facility that had replaced the old council chambers as the center of galactic governance. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from dozens of species docking peacefully, their crews mingling in the station's common areas without fear or hostility. "The monthly reports, Madam President," said her aide, presenting a holographic display of data from across human-administered space. The numbers told an incredible story. Interspecies trade had increased by 400%. Scientific collaboration between species had led to breakthrough discoveries in medicine, physics, and engineering. Most remarkably, there had been 0 incidents of interspecies violence in 18 months. "How are the integration programs proceeding?" Santos asked. "Excellently. The Zilithian Empire has completed its transition to individual rights governance. Their children are learning about human concepts of personal freedom and cultural tolerance. The Nexilian worlds have established their first elected governments. Even the hive worlds have adapted their collective consciousness to protect individual thoughts and preferences." Admiral Hayes, now serving as the Federation's Secretary of Interstellar Relations, joined Santos on the observation deck. Her hair had gone completely silver during the war years, but her eyes still held the steel that had shattered the Council's fleets. "The transformation still amazes me," Hayes said, watching an Altarian child play with human youngsters in the station's garden area. 5 years ago, these species were calling us primitive barbarians. Now they're adopting our social structures voluntarily. "Fear is a powerful motivator," Santos replied, "but it's not what's keeping this peace. They've seen that our way works better." The truth was more complex than simple fear, though the complete destruction of Council military power certainly played a role. The real change had come when alien populations experienced life under human administration and discovered something their own governments had never provided: genuine freedom and security for individuals, especially the most vulnerable. Dr. Sarah Chen, now director of the Emma Rodriguez Memorial Institute, had spent 5 years documenting this transformation. Her research showed that species after species had experienced dramatic improvements in quality of life. scientific progress, and social satisfaction after adopting human governmental models. The key was never military superiority, she explained to a group of students, both human and alien, during her weekly lecture. It was demonstrating that our principles actually worked better than theirs. When the Thoraxian Confederacy abolished their caste system and established individual rights, their technological development increased by 60% in 2 years. The Emma Rodriguez Memorial Institute had become one of the galaxy's premier research facilities, studying the intersection of culture, governance, and interspecies relations. Its findings were reshaping how civilizations thought about diversity and cooperation. But the most powerful symbol of the new order wasn't a space station or a research facility. It was a small memorial garden on Luna Base where a simple granite stone bore the inscription, Emma Rodriguez, age 12. She dreamed of friendship among the stars. David and Carmen Rodriguez visited their daughter's memorial regularly, often accompanied by alien dignitaries who had come to pay their respects. The garden had become an informal pilgrimage site for species across the galaxy, a place where beings came to remember the cost of intolerance and the hope of redemption. She would have loved this, Carmen said during one such visit, watching a group of Zilithian youngsters place flowers at Emma's memorial. All these different species learning to be friends. The Zilithians had been among the most changed by Emma's story. Their species, once convinced of their moral superiority, had undergone a cultural revolution when they truly understood what they had done. They had established a tradition of sending their children to Luna Base to learn about Emma's life and the principles she had died for. High Counselor Zephyrian, the former head of the Galactic Council, had remained on Luna Base after the surrender. His crystalline form had never fully recovered its color, remaining a translucent reminder of his species' shame. But he had found a new purpose as a teacher, helping alien children understand the importance of individual rights and cultural tolerance. Your daughter changed everything, he told Carmen Rodriguez during one of his regular visits to the memorial garden. My species spent 10,000 years believing we were perfect. It took a human child to show us how wrong we were. The transformation wasn't complete, of course. There were still incidents, misunderstandings, and conflicts. But the Terran Federation had established a framework for resolving disputes peacefully, with the Emma Rodriguez Accord serving as the foundational law for interspecies relations. These accords, negotiated in the war's aftermath, established principles that would have seemed revolutionary to the old Galactic Council. The right of individuals to make their own choices about food, culture, and lifestyle. The protection of children from all forms of violence. The requirement that laws be based on evidence rather than cultural prejudice. And the fundamental principle that diversity of thought and behavior was a strength, not a weakness. Captain Torres, now Admiral Torres commanding the Federation peacekeeping force, regularly patrolled former Council territories to ensure compliance with the new order. His flagship Emma's Hope carried a mixed crew of humans and aliens working together in harmony that would have been impossible under the old system. Status report from the outer sectors? President Santos asked during the weekly security briefing. All quiet, Madam President. The draconian systems have completed their integration protocols. The last of the old Council hardliners surrendered their weapons caches last month. We're seeing increased requests for Federation membership from independent species. The galaxy's transformation had created a new problem. Success. Species that had never been part of the old Council were asking to join the Terran Federation, drawn by the prosperity and peace they observed in human-administered territories. How many applications are we processing? Santos asked. 43 new species this quarter. The Crystalline Collective, the Methane Breath Alliance, even the nomadic traders want formal relationships with the Federation. Hayes smiled. Emma wanted to be an ambassador to alien worlds. She's becoming one even now. The final memorial service for the war's end was held on Earth, in the same United Nations building where humanity had first decided to fight back against the Council's tyranny. Representatives from every species in the known galaxy attended, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals in a new civilization built around shared values of freedom and dignity. President Santos delivered the closing address. Her words transmitted across the galaxy. 5 years ago, 37 species declared that humanity was too violent, too aggressive, and too primitive to join their galactic community. They tried to prove this by murdering a human child who had done nothing more than eat the wrong food at a welcome dinner. Today, those same species have discovered something they never expected, that the principles they called primitive, individual freedom, the protection of the innocent, and the celebration of diversity, are actually the foundations of true civilization. Emma Rodriguez died because she was different, because she acted like a human child in a galaxy that demanded conformity. Her death showed us that the universe was not as friendly as we had hoped. But it also showed the galaxy something they had never seen before, what humans do when their children are threatened. We did not seek to conquer or to rule. We sought justice for a murdered child. In achieving that justice, we created something greater than any of us imagined. A galaxy where no child will ever again be punished for being different, where diversity is celebrated rather than suppressed, and where the strong protect the weak rather than exploiting them. Emma Rodriguez wanted to be an ambassador to the stars. She became something greater, the architect of a new age of interstellar civilization. Every peaceful contact between species, every child protected from harm, every individual free to make their own choices, all of it stands as her monument. The galaxy tried to break one human child and ended up being remade in her image. That is the power of innocence protected by righteousness, and it is the legacy we will carry to the stars. As the ceremony ended and beings from across the galaxy returned to their worlds, one thing was clear. Emma Rodriguez had achieved her dream of bringing species together in friendship. The method had been tragedy and war rather than diplomacy and cultural exchange. But the result was everything she had hoped for and more. Humanity had entered the galactic stage as supplicants, seeking acceptance from older and supposedly wiser civilizations. They had ended up as the teachers, showing the galaxy what true wisdom looked like, the recognition that every